Exodus chapter 7. The Lord said to Moses, See, I have made you like God in Pharaoh's eyes, and Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You will tell Aaron all that I command you, and he will tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel leave the country. I will indeed make him stubborn, and although I multiply my signs and portents in the land of Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and by great acts of judgment I will lead my armies, my people, the people of Israel, out of Egypt. Then will the Egyptians know that I am the Lord, when they see with what power I bring the people of Israel out of their country. Moses and Aaron did exactly what the Lord had commanded them. Moses was 80, and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Staff turns into snake. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh speaks to you and tells you to perform a portent to prove the truth of what you say, you will say to Aaron, Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did what the Lord had commanded. Aaron threw his staff before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and soothsayers, and they too, the magicians of Egypt, did the same by means of their secret arts. Each one threw his staff down, and the staffs became serpents, but Aaron's staff swallowed up the staffs of the magicians. However, Pharaoh was obstinate, and he did not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. The plagues of Egypt. First plague, water turns into blood. The Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh is stubborn. He has refused to let the people leave. So you will go to Pharaoh in the morning. When he goes to the water, wait for him on the bank of the river, and hold in your hand the staff that turned into a serpent. You will say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, Let my people go to worship me in the desert. But so far you have not listened. By this you shall learn that I am the Lord. Look, I will strike the waters of the Nile with the staff in my hand, and they will turn into blood. The fish in the river Nile will die, and the river will become foul, and the Egyptians will no longer be able to drink its water. The Lord said to Moses, Say to Aaron, Take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, rivers, canals, ponds and pools of water, and they will turn into blood. There will be blood throughout Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone. Moses and Aaron did as the Lord had commanded. Aaron raised his staff and struck the waters of the Nile in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials, and all the water in the Nile turned to blood. The fish in the river died, and the Nile became foul, so that the Egyptians could no longer drink the water of the Nile. There was blood all over the land of Egypt. The Egyptian magicians, however, could do the same with their secret crafts, and Pharaoh remained unmoved. And as the Lord had foretold, he would not listen to Moses and Aaron. Pharaoh returned to his house as if nothing of importance had happened, and yet all the Egyptians were digging near the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink from the river. Second plague, the frogs. 7 days passed after the Lord had struck the Nile. The Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh and tell him, Thus says the Lord, Let my people go to worship me. If you refuse to let them live, I will punish the country with a plague of frogs. The Nile will teem with frogs. They will invade your house, your bedroom and your bed, the houses of your servants and subjects, your ovens and your kneading bowls. The frogs will swarm all over you and your subjects and all your servants. Exodus chapter 8. The Lord spoke to Moses, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, canals, and ponds of Egypt, and cause frogs to cover all the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over all the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered all the land of Egypt. The magicians of Egypt did the same by means of their secret arts, and they brought frogs over the land of Egypt. Then Moses summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Ask the Lord to remove the frogs from me and my people, and I will send the people to sacrifice to the Lord." But Moses replied, "Let me know when I am to make intercession for you, your officials and your people, that you may be rid of frogs except in the Nile." Pharaoh answered, "Tomorrow." And Moses said, "It shall be as you have said, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will disappear from you and your house, your officials and your people. Only in the Nile will they remain." With this, Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh's presence. Then Moses called on the Lord concerning the frogs that he had inflicted on Pharaoh. The Lord did as Moses had requested, and the frogs died in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields. The people piled them in heaps, and the land was filled with a foul smell. Now that relief had come, Pharaoh became even more stubborn and would not listen, just as the Lord had foretold. Third plague, the mosquitoes. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron to stretch out his staff and strike the dust of the earth with his staff, that it may turn into mosquitoes throughout the land of Egypt." Aaron did this. He stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the earth, which turned into mosquitoes that tormented men and animals. All the dust of the earth all over Egypt turned into mosquitoes. But when the magicians tried by means of their secret arts to drive away the mosquitoes, they were not able to do so, and the mosquitoes kept tormenting men and animals. The magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh was unmoved and did not listen as the Lord had foretold. Fourth plague, the horseflies. The Lord said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh when he is on his way to the river. Say to him, 'This is the Lord's message. Let my people go and worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will send horseflies on you, on your officials, and on your people, and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians will be filled with horseflies, and even the ground on which they stand. But on that day I will spare the land of Goshen, where my people are. No horseflies will be there, and by this you will realize that I, the Lord, am in the land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people. By tomorrow this will have happened." The Lord did this, and dense swarms of horseflies invaded Pharaoh's house and the house of all his officials, and all over Egypt. They infested the whole country. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go and sacrifice to your God in this country." But Moses replied, "That would not be right. We offer to our God animals which are sacred for the Egyptians. If we were to offer in their presence a sacrifice which offends the Egyptians, would they not stone us? We must make a 3 days journey into the desert, and then we will sacrifice to the Lord our God as he commands." Pharaoh replied, "I will let you go and sacrifice to your God in the desert, but on condition that you not go very far, and pray to God for me." Moses said, "As soon as I leave you, I will pray to the Lord, and tomorrow the horseflies will leave you, your officials and your people. But do not continue to deceive us by refusing to let the people go and sacrifice to the Lord." Moses left Pharaoh's presence and prayed to the Lord, who did as Moses had asked, and delivered Pharaoh, his officials and people from the horseflies. Not one horsefly was left, but Pharaoh was stubborn and refused to let the people go. Psalm 26. Prayer of an innocent man. Declare me innocent, O Lord, for I have lived with integrity. My trust in the Lord never wavers. Probe me, O Lord, and try me. Examine my soul and my heart. For your love is ever before my eyes, and I live in your truth. I do not associate with the deceitful, nor do I enjoy the acquaintance of hypocrites. I hate to be in league with evildoers, and do not sit together with the wicked. I wash my hands free of guilt, and walk in procession round your altar, O Lord, singing hymns of thanksgiving and proclaiming your wondrous deeds. O Lord, I love the house where you dwell, the place of your glory. Let me not share the fate of sinners, nor my life with men of violence, those whose hands are guilty of crimes, whose right hands are weighed down with bribes. But I will walk in integrity. Redeem me and be gracious to me. My feet stand on level ground. I will praise you, O Lord, in the assemblies. Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 17. The Transfiguration of Jesus. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John, and led them up a high mountain where they were alone. Jesus' appearance was changed before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became bright as light. Just then Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with Jesus. Peter spoke and said to Jesus, Master, it is good that we are here. If you so wish, I will make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Peter was still speaking when a bright cloud covered them in its shadow, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. On hearing the voice, the disciples fell to the ground full of fear. But Jesus came, touched them, and said, Stand up, do not be afraid. When they raised their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone what they had just seen, until the Son of Man should be raised from the dead. The disciples asked him, Why do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? And Jesus answered, Elijah must come first to set everything as it has to be. But I tell you, Elijah has come, and they did not recognize him, but treated him as they pleased. In the same way they will also make the Son of Man suffer. Then the disciples understood that Jesus was referring to John the Baptist. Jesus heals an epileptic boy. When they met the people, a man approached Jesus, knelt before him, and said, Lord, have pity on my son, who is an epileptic and suffers much. He often falls into fire and often into water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. Jesus replied, You faithless and evil people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus commanded the evil spirit to leave the boy, and the boy was immediately healed. The disciple then gathered around Jesus and asked him privately, Why could we not drive out the spirit? Jesus said to them, Because you have little faith. I say to you, if only you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could tell that mountain to move from here to there, and the mountain would obey. Nothing would be impossible to you. Only prayer and fasting can drive out this kind of spirit. When the disciples came together in Galilee, Jesus said to them, The Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, but he will rise on the 3rd day. So they were deeply grieved. The temple tax paid. On returning to Capernaum, the temple tax collectors came to Peter and asked him, Does your master not pay the temple tax? He answered, Certainly. And when Peter entered the house, before he could speak, Jesus asked him, What do you think, Simon? Who paid taxes or tributes to the kings of the earth, their sons or the other people? Peter replied, the others. And Jesus told him, the sons then are exempt. But so as not to offend these people, go to the lake, throw in a hook and open the mouth of the first fish you catch. You will find a coin in it. Take it and let it pay for you and for me.